I am Hippocrates, born in the year 460 BCE on the island of Kos, in ancient Greece. My name has since become synonymous with medicine, but when I first drew breath, the world's understanding of health was shrouded in mystery, dominated by superstition, and governed by the whims of the gods. My journey into the field of healing would challenge and redefine these primitive beliefs, and my methods would later earn me the title of the father of medicine. My early life was not particularly extraordinary, though I was fortunate to be born into a family with a strong tradition in healing. My father, Hippocrates, was himself a physician, and my lineage was said to trace back to the great god of healing, Asclepius. It is often said that I inherited my vocation, but in truth, my path was shaped by curiosity rather than predestination. The island of Kos, though small, was an important hub of learning in the Aegean. Growing up there, I was surrounded by a wealth of knowledge about the human body and its ailments, albeit much of it was intertwined with myth and religion. Even as a young boy, I questioned the validity of these mystical explanations for sickness. The idea that diseases were punishments from the gods never sat well with me. Surely, I thought, there must be a rational cause for illness, something that could be studied, understood, and perhaps even controlled. As I grew, my training became more formal. I learned from my father and other local physicians, but it wasn't long before I began to travel. My passion for knowledge took me beyond Kos to places like Athens, Thessaly, and even Egypt, which was renowned for its ancient medical wisdom. Everywhere I went, I observed and learned, but I never blindly accepted what I was taught. I was skeptical of the over-reliance on divine intervention, charms, and incantations. Healing, I believed, required more than rituals. It required understanding. One of my most formative experiences was my time at the temple of Asclepius. These temples, or Asclepians, were dedicated to the god of healing and attracted patients seeking cures. The priests who ran the temples would often conduct elaborate ceremonies to invoke the favor of the gods. While I respected the tradition, I was more interested in observing the physical treatments they offered, dietary advice, rest, exercise, and herbal remedies. It was here that I began to develop my theories on the healing power of nature. By the time I returned to Kos as a fully trained physician, my reputation had already begun to grow. Patients came from far and wide seeking my counsel. They heard of my unconventional approach, one that did not rely on superstition or appeasing the gods. Instead, I focused on the body and its natural functions. I believed that illness was not a divine curse but a disturbance in the body's balance of humors. This concept of bodily fluids, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, became the foundation of my medical philosophy. The idea was simple yet profound. Health, I theorized, was the result of a balance between these four humors, and disease was the consequence of their imbalance. The key to healing, therefore, lay in restoring this balance. I developed treatments centered on diet, exercise, rest, and occasionally more invasive techniques like bloodletting. But always, I stressed the importance of the body's natural ability to heal itself. The physician's role was merely to guide this process. Around this time, I began to record my observations and teachings in what would later be called the Hippocratic corpus. This collection of around 60 medical texts, though not all written by me directly, reflected my approach and the philosophies of my school. It was a turning point in the history of medicine. These texts introduced the notion that disease was not a supernatural phenomenon but a natural one, subject to study, analysis, and intervention. Perhaps my most enduring contribution to medicine, though, is the ethical framework I established for the practice of healing. As a physician, I believe that our first and most sacred duty is to the patient. Our actions must always be governed by compassion, wisdom, and a commitment to do no harm. I formalized this belief in the Hippocratic Oath, a solemn vow that has been taken by physicians for generations after me. It begins with a reverence for the teachers who passed on their knowledge, and then it lays out the physician's responsibilities. Among the most important tenets of the oath are primum non nocere, first, do no harm. to treat the sick to the best of one's ability, to protect patient privacy, to avoid exploiting the patient for financial or personal gain, to teach the art of medicine to the next generation without cost. The oath was revolutionary because it placed the welfare of the patient at the center of the physician's practice. It elevated medicine from a trade to a profession of honor and trust. In my lifetime, I traveled extensively, practicing medicine in many of the great city-states of Greece, including Athens and Larissa. Athens, in particular, was a city of ideas, a place where philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and later Aristotle would gather. Although my profession was different, I found common ground with these thinkers in my belief that reason and observation should guide all human endeavors, including medicine. My travels allowed me to treat a diverse range of patients, from common folk to the wealthiest of citizens. One of my most famous cases was that of the king of Macedonia, Perdiccas II. His fever had baffled the physicians at his court, but I was able to cure him through a combination of careful observation and treatment aimed at restoring balance to his humors. But I did not restrict myself to the elite. The majority of my patients were ordinary people. For them, I prescribed simple remedies, fresh air, a healthy diet, and regular exercise. I taught them that their health was largely in their own hands, and that by maintaining a balanced lifestyle, they could prevent many illnesses from ever taking hold. This emphasis on prevention, as much as cure, was another innovation in my practice. In my later years, I returned to Kos and established a school of medicine. Here, I trained the next generation of physicians, passing on my methods and philosophy. I stressed the importance of observation, careful diagnosis, and individualized treatment. I also taught my students to keep detailed records of their cases so that future physicians could learn from them. As I reflect on my life's work, I take pride not only in the patients I healed, but also in the changes I helped bring to the practice of medicine. I took medicine out of the realm of superstition and placed it firmly in the realm of science and reason. I emphasized the importance of understanding the body's natural functions and working with them to restore health. And I instilled in my students and colleagues an ethical code that placed the welfare of the patient above all else. I know that the work I began will continue long after I am gone. My name, Hippocrates, may fade from memory, but the principles I espoused will endure. Medicine will evolve, new discoveries will be made, and treatments will become more effective. But as long as physicians remember that their first duty is to their patients, and as long as they practice their art with compassion, wisdom, and humility, I believe that my legacy will live on. In the end, my greatest achievement is not in the specific treatments I devised, but in the shift I helped bring about from a world where illness was feared as the wrath of the gods to one where it is understood as a natural phenomenon that can be studied, treated, and often cured. I am Hippocrates, and this is my story.